What if I told you that the missing years of Jesus Christ, those silent, mysterious years between childhood and ministry, were never truly lost? What if the truth had been carefully guarded, not erased, but protected, nestled in the highlands of Africa, in a land older than the cross itself, where ancient manuscripts whisper stories in a language older than Latin, where scripture was not shaped by emperors, but preserved by monks? This is not just history. This is sacred memory, uncolonized, unbroken, unheard. For nearly 2,000 years, the world has wondered, what happened to Jesus between the ages of 12 and 30? Where did he go? What did he learn? And who was he becoming before the waters of the Jordan opened his public ministry? The canonical Gospels are silent, but in Ethiopia, the silence speaks. Chapter 1, The Great Gap. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 41 to 52, we see a young Jesus, only 12 years old, confounding the elders in the temple during Passover. He speaks with divine wisdom, stirs amazement, and then abruptly disappears from the biblical record. From that moment, the next 18 years of Jesus' life vanish from Scripture. Scholars call it the silent years. But what if they weren't silent at all? What if they were simply overlooked, edited out, or hidden in plain sight? For centuries, Western theologians have speculated, theorized, and imagined those lost years. But few have looked south, to Africa, to Ethiopia. Chapter 2, Ancient Christianity Untouched. Ethiopia is not a footnote in Christian history. It is one of its earliest chapters. Long before the Roman Empire adopted Christianity, Ethiopia had already embraced it, as early as the 4th century AD. And not through colonization, not through missionaries, but through organic, internal adoption, rooted in African soil. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is among the oldest continuous Christian communities in the world. Its scriptures are older, its liturgy more ancient, and its traditions less tampered by foreign powers. This makes Ethiopia's Christianity not just ancient, but authentic. Unlike most Christian cultures shaped by European interpretation, Ethiopia preserved a spiritual memory that predates Western theological editing. Chapter 3, The Ethiopian Bible, More Than a Canon. The Ethiopian Bible is unlike any other. While the King James Bible contains 66 books, the Ethiopian Bible includes 88. Written in Grizi, a sacred Semitic language older than Hebrew and Arabic, this canon includes texts the West rejected: the Book of Enoch, the Ascension of Isaiah, the Jubilees, Infancy Gospels, and other so-called apocryphal writings. But in Ethiopia, these texts are not apocryphal. They are sacred. They are scripture. They tell stories of a young Jesus, divine from the cradle, wise beyond years, healing with a touch, creating with a word. In one ancient tale, preserved in the Infancy Gospel of Thomas and venerated in Ethiopian oral tradition, Jesus forms birds from clay and brings them to life, a miracle echoing divine creation itself. In another, he heals a wounded carpenter, raises the dead, and reveals a messianic identity not in adulthood, but in childhood. These were not bedtime stories. They were testimonies of faith. Chapter 4, Enoch in the Hidden Realm. One of the most profound texts preserved in Ethiopia is the Book of Enoch. Once cherished by early Christians and even quoted in the New Testament Book of Jude, it was later removed from Western canons. But in Ethiopia it endured, and its content is extraordinary. It speaks of heavenly journeys, fallen angels, and apocalyptic visions. It reveals a cosmology where divine beings interact with humankind, and where the Messiah's coming is foretold not just as an event, but as a cosmic necessity. To Ethiopian Christians, Enoch is not mythology. It's memory. And its inclusion in their canon speaks volumes about how they viewed the supernatural power of Jesus, not just as a man sent by God, but as a being in full communion with heaven, even as a child. Chapter 5, The Monks of the Highlands. High in the Ethiopian mountains, in monasteries carved into stone, guarded by time and tradition, monks have preserved handwritten manuscripts for over 1,600 years. These sacred spaces, some only accessible by rope or by foot, have kept the ancient faith intact. In 2010, scholars discovered an illustrated Grizi Gospel in one such remote monastery. It contained passages and imagery never before seen in the West. The illustrations showed Jesus not as a mysterious adult suddenly appearing at the Jordan, but as a boy, radiant with divine light, performing acts of mercy and power. This wasn't just art, it was doctrine. Chapter 6. The Ark and the Lineage. Ethiopia's religious tradition does not stop with texts. It claims guardianship over one of the holiest relics in biblical history, the Ark of the Covenant. According to the Kabra Nagast, an Ethiopian chronicle, the Ark was brought to Ethiopia by Menelik I, son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. It now allegedly resides in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum, guarded by a single monk, forbidden to leave his post for life. Though unconfirmed by modern archaeology, the persistence of this claim reinforces the Ethiopian Church's identity as a direct heir to biblical Israel. In this light, it's not surprising that their view of Jesus includes traditions lost to Roman and European Christianity, including the sacred memory of his early life. Chapter 7. Why it was ignored. Why have these stories been ignored? Why is Ethiopia's voice so absent from mainstream Christian teaching? Colonialism. Eurocentrism. A theological lens shaped by empire rather than exploration. As Christianity became the tool of conquest, African traditions were marginalized, dismissed, or labeled heretical. But Ethiopia was never conquered, and so, its memory remains unbroken. To ignore Ethiopian Christianity is to ignore a pillar of the early church. To dismiss its scriptures is to overlook a vital piece of the Jesus story. Final chapter, Rethinking the Christ story. The missing years of Jesus are not missing. They are preserved, in manuscripts, in chants, in memory, in a land that has never let go. Ethiopia invites us to remember a Jesus who did not suddenly become divine at 30, but who was always divine. A teacher, a healer, a mystery walking in human form from his earliest breath. This is not mythology. It is sacred heritage. What else have we forgotten? What else lies hidden in the shadows of history, waiting not to be discovered, but remembered? Ethiopia holds the key to a deeper Christ, to a gospel before the gospel. It's time we listened. To those who remember, nothing is ever truly lost. Subscribe to uncover more untold stories of ancient faiths and sacred histories. Share, comment, question what you thought you knew, because truth often hides where we were never taught to look.